Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this special episode, and don't forget to support our Patreon. Just $1 or more will get you early access to all of our content as well as other special features. Enjoy the show! The following is a fan-based video review under fair use. The Phantom of the Opera is owned by Universal Pictures. Please support the official release and streaming services.
Are you sure about this?
No. I just want to make sure. So, still alive.
My lord, spies have reported from the warrior's travels to Transylvania. It appears the rumors are true. Count Dracula is alive.
Is he now? It appears I must make an appointment with the Count. He might have a lead to a creature of the dead that I may have use for.
Accessing archive. Attention viewers, BigJackFilms is unavailable at the moment due to his quest for the King's Gauntlet. But he has left a recording and substituted post for the show for you to enjoy.
Greetings, fellow mortals, it's BigJackFilms here, and welcome back to our annual Halloween special. And this year I figured we'd go back to basics and continue where we left off with the classic Universal Studios monsters. Back in 2020, I gave a rundown of the 5 greatest film monsters of cinema history. However, given there was only 5 Fridays that year, there were a few I missed from previous years. So to make up for it now, we're gonna tackle 3 more monsters with a special predecessor for the last slot. And I'd say we kick off with Universal's beginnings over 100 years ago. In 1912, many creative minds fled west to evade Thomas Edison, yes, that Thomas Edison, the hack himself, rest easy Nikolai Tesla, including the then eccentric Carl Laemmle and friends, to create one of the first major film houses with Universal Pictures built on a former chicken ranch, which in a sense supplied them with their meals every day. While many of their earlier films were modest successes, it wasn't until theatrical stage actor Lon Cheney came in to spice in their films with a few scares for audiences. And in 1925, arguably the studio's first major icon and monster was born and passed on into legend for the past 100 years. That being the silent classic, The Phantom of the Opera. Based on the 1910 novel by Gaston Leroux, no relation, the plot tells the tale of a disfigured former composer, played by Lon Cheney, that haunts the Paris Opera House as several people have seen the cloaked, shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. From his vantage point, high above the Opera House stage, the Phantom sees and falls in love with a young understudy, Christine Day, played by Mary Fiben, who is standing in for the company's principal actress, Charlotta, played by Mary Fiben. That's really confusing. The masked Phantom lures Christine into the subterranean world below Paris, where he lives and professes his love. When she removes his mask, she is horrified by his grotesque appearance and begs to be released. He agrees, but tells her to stay away from her lover, Raoul, played by Norman Carey. Terrified, she turns to Raoul for protection, and the outraged Phantom, who the police have determined is an insane criminal and escaped from Devil's Island, kidnaps Christine off stage during a performance at the opera. Assisted by Lennox of the secret police, Raoul proceeds to enter the Phantom's underground lair to rescue her and end the Phantom's menace on Paris.
I don't want this fucking cringe in my sight again.
First and foremost, there's no denying that the original 1925 silent film is a butterfly effective classic of cinema that paved the way of the monster movie and horror genre in general, in creating an empire of a franchise based on this classic character. And while I will discuss the cast, its legacy is all thanks to, credibly, the first horror star of cinema with the man of 1,000 faces himself, Lon Cheney. While many actors have played the Phantom, nothing has ever toppled Cheney's monstrous portrayal as the first and best. Many credit the iconic Phantom to the half-moon-shaped mask, but for me, it's Cheney's visual performance, all within his incredible facial expressions and outstanding makeup for which in all of his films he did himself, playing the Phantom as less of a monster, but a mental tragedy longing for unconditional love from society, or at least his ideal soulmate. While other Phantoms played off the character's tragedy as more stoic, none of them have been able to focus on the Phantom's deformity as the central fear since 1925. You look at it now, and many see it as over-the-top and generic, but in my opinion, and for the 20s, this was iconic and personally my favorite of the master's work. His makeup alone pioneered the film effects industry, inspiring many, from Rick Baker to Tom Savini, and even getting his own Universal Studios attraction in 1990 with the Phantom of the Opera horror makeup show, which still runs to this day at the park as the Universal Studios Horror Makeup Show, which has seen various updates in its 33 years of operation.
You have entered my theater, and you are now my guests. You shall learn secrets of makeup and effects, which I have chosen to allow. No more, no less. These secrets of the craft are for you and for no others. Should you choose to ignore this warning, you will incur my eternal wrath.
But credit also must go to the lovely Mary Fiben as Christine, who, while a damsel in distress, as was practice in that time period, managed to give us empathy for the Phantom when she, on occasions, attempts to confront him. You do feel concerned for her safety at times, but root for her survival and hope she can tame the monster from his destructive path of the beautiful opera house, which, as a side note, the production design is fantastic, having stood in the Universal Studios soundstage for close to 90 years. Until J.K. Rowling took a giant queefing piss on it with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter destroying it all. Which nowadays I'm sure Universal is regretting. God, I miss you, Jaws. Speaking of sets, one of the most impressive is the ballroom of the Opera House due to one specific reason. It was one of the first major film scenes shot in color. It's not like most silent films at the time that used color filters to set the mood of each scene. This was one of the first films to use legitimate color in the movies. For 1925, this must have been pretty stunning for audiences at the time. Now, for the time period, one of my only real complaints is, like I've said before, is that some of the heroic characters are mostly bland and boring, especially Raoul, who wouldn't really be fleshed out as a three-dimensional character until later adaptations. While Lon Cheney and the studio had prior successes with 1923's Hunchback of Notre Dame, ironically turning 100 years old this year, and the rise of German expressionist horror films dominating the box office with the likes of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu, and even a lost adaptation of the story in 1916, the Phantom of the Opera put American filmmaking on the map in the horror genre, being remade and retold countless times, since the book's publishing over 100 years ago, with even Universal remaking it in 1943 with the amazing Claude Rains in the starring role.
Thief. You've stolen my music.
In 1962, Hammer Studios adapted the book with Herbert Lom as the Phantom, and in 1989, Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund, played the title character. God, imagine the Phantom with a power glove.
Now I'm playing with power!
Now you're playing with fucking shit.
But for many, it was the 1986 musical stage production by Andrew Lloyd Webber that cemented the character into the pop culture. I won't dive into it too much, but the musical is one of the most iconic, and in 2005 was adapted to the big screen by director Joel Schumacher.
And I really want to apologize.
And ironically enough, the musical also influenced the 1989 Batman for the climax of the movie.
Jack and John Peters go to see the Phantom of the Opera. And at the end of Phantom of the Opera, there's a scene where she goes up to the tower. I don't know how the story went, if John turned to Jack, Jack turned to John, but said, you know, this is what we need. And the next day, they started writing that scene, the whole ending in the tower.
But while Schumacher's film is a great cinematic adaptation of the stage show, with incredible set designs, amazing actors, and a pretty kick-ass sword fight, it still doesn't hold a candlelight to the original film's aesthetic, and unfortunately, with Universal taking forever for a new monster movie to get its ass in gear, with the passage of time, and the unfortunate downfall of the Dark Universe, it's doubtful a traditional remake of the story will never come to life with the popularity of the musical. Which is a shame, because I'd say in the Dark Universe there's a few ideas even myself I'd love to showcase. But with the failure of such, we can at least appreciate the classics, and the Phantom of the Opera is certainly one of the first and one of the best, with German expressionist visuals, a great scale for the silent era, and a legend of horror at the forefront of the screen, who unfortunately left as soon as he peaked. In 1930, Lon Cheney died of throat cancer, ironically at the turn of the sound era for movies, and shortly beforehand, Universal originally offered him the role of Count Dracula, which while he never was given a chance, he did play a vampire in the lost film London After Midnight. But the torch was passed to the great Bela Lugosi, respectively, in 1931.
Indeed.
But to me, Lon Cheney and the Phantom of the Opera go hand in hand as the superior film adaptation of the classic story, coming in at a flashing 9.2 out of 10. It's a classic among classics and one of the best films of the silent era. And with the Phantom's grace fading into darkness of the silent era, and the dawn of sound filling our screens with the likes of Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy, one monster also emerged from this time with the traits of the Phantom. So tune in next time when we take a look at the Invisible Man. Wait, how the hell did I turn invisible? Oh, right, I'm a hologram. I'll just escort myself out. Master, I have found you at long last. Oh, don't worry, Master. The Dark One will retain your power and restore your rightful rule.
So, you think you have escaped death? Let it be war for you, Count, for you will not escape my eternal wrath!